On today's episode, we are joined by Bing Chen, the CEO and co-founder of Goldhouse, an organization helping reshape how Asian Americans are seen and celebrated across business, media, and culture. As CEO, Bing has led powerful initiatives that uplift and empower the Asian American community. Before co-founding Goldhouse, Bing served as global head of creator development at YouTube, where he helped build the foundation of the creator economy. He's also currently the managing director at AU Holdings, investing in multicultural founders and creative ventures around the world. Please welcome Bing Chen to the Aim High podcast. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so to start off, because this podcast is centered around being an Asian American leader in business, it is important to first understand each guest's childhood and upbringing as an Asian American, because ideas instilled within you from your parents, your environment, may have helped you become successful in where you are today. So for the first question, could you explain your childhood situation growing up? Where did you grow up? Did you have any siblings? And what were family dynamics like?
I grew up as a third culture kid between North America and Asia. So I was born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I was very much thought I was white and American. And I had a deep country Tennessee accent, played soccer, baseball, ate hot dogs, burgers all day long. I loved it. It's where I got my heart and my generosity. And when we turned 10, we moved to Shanghai, where I knowingly became Asian because I was given a billion reasons why I was told and sort of shown why I was. But I think that was interesting because when you grow up Asian in Asia, being Asian is not a thing. It's more of a responsibility as part of the majority. And so you're able to see what happens when you have that kind of power, how you have to be a good steward and share and so forth. And then I spent my high school years in Southern California, where I suppose the politest thing I can say is I got my taste. I didn't love it, to be honest, because I found it quite shallow, and limiting because of that. But I do appreciate being in a city. My family is Taiwanese. They fled during the revolution. My parents came from immense squalor and really made it and became the American dream, as it were, if you codify the American dream by economics. I think the two lessons I learned from each of my parents were my father died when I was 15. And of cancer, which is why we had to move to SoCal. And that taught me basically essentialism, how you should only ever focus on things that most matter, like longevity, how you should never raise your voice or become stressed, because most things are not life and death. It was a painful lesson, but I'm very grateful for it. And then my mother is this really rare hybridization of firm warmth or economics and empathy. And I think probably only a woman could have done this for our household, but she shows me the type of leader that I hope to be, which is to say she was phenomenally economically successful. She was the highest paid woman in Tennessee for several years, but then also had to manage a family when her father, her mother, and then her husband all died back to back across the 3-year period. And how to hold together a family and 2 young kids and so forth is just very tough. And so my mother is at once the toughest, but also the kindest and most charismatic person I know. And so I've learned how to navigate the world from her.
Yeah, and when you moved to China when you were 10 years old, did you feel you were more American at that time, or did you feel like you were already Asian? And what was that adjusting? Because on the outside you looked Asian, but I'm sure you kind of felt like the odd one out, even though you looked like everyone else.
Yeah, no, it was basically the big influx of Western expats, or global expats, I should say. So we had friends from Cairo to, upper state New York. And so I quickly moved from being American to just being a global citizen and a human being. I'd say that's the easiest way to say it, because we realized that agnostic of where you're from and all that, we all just like the same things. We all just want to go swimming. We all were trying to just navigate this insane experience of Shanghai in 1999 as a bunch of kids. We were all trying to figure out why we were clubbing at 13. And so I think the best lesson, the most important lesson probably of my life that I definitely learned in that first summer fall was that we are more similar than we are different. And you hear politicians say this all the time, and most of us roll our eyes because very few of us are given the privilege of being exposed to this sort of opportunity. But I truly felt it, and I lived it, and I grew up it. We all want the same things. We just may talk about them differently. We may live them differently. We may prioritize them differently, but we really all do want the same things. And they are, 1, to live as long and healthily as possible. 2, to love and hopefully be loved. and 3 is to leave mark and or do something of consequence. Some people call this impact, some people call it a career. We all just want those 3 things.
Yeah, and how did that like kind of give you perspective on what you do now today, and like from that time of being like a global citizen, how has that played a role in what you're currently doing?
Yeah, it's so many ways. I think in 3 ways. When I helped build the creator economy at YouTube, we had to scale the partner program from 9 to 42 countries, and I, as a 24-year-old, was somehow expected to lead this. And we basically realized that agnostic of the category of creator you are, whether you're a beauty guru or a musician, agnostic of your geography, agnostic of your resources, are you the Walt Disney Company in your parents' bedroom? Every creator cares about the same 6 things in the exact same descending order. So once again, we are more similar than we are different. I'll illustrate through one example. When a musician has a event, it's called a concert. When a comedian has an event, it's called a stand-up show. But they are both still events. They both require tickets, concessions, audience lights, stages, and so forth. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
They just call them something different. They may be different scale and all that.
Yeah.
So that would be one. The second piece was Goldhouse. Before Goldhouse, there really didn't feel like there was a cross-industry, cross-generational, cross-ethnic sense of harmony in our diaspora, certainly not in the West. And so we invested a lot of time. It was a lot of us. It really was not me. A lot of us trying to understand what would unite us, given we have 50 ethnicities, hundreds of dialects, if not thousands. We're spread to every corner of the earth. We don't have a single historic struggle that's punitive to unite us. And we realized that the single North Star for all of us, the single unifying force, the similarity, was that we all care about shared prosperity. Everyone wants to just do better than their parents did, and we want to make sure that we can give that to the world. And that indeed has been the rallying cry of Goldhouse. That's why we're called Goldhouse, not Asian House. We are trying to make gold, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's in new forms of creativity like K-pop Demon Hunters and Everything Ever All at Once, or it's in new companies, in the case of like Zoom, DoorDash, Canva, etc.
Yeah.
So that's that. And then the third piece that is how we're expanding and sort of the next phase of my life is trying to understand what binds humanity. I've been like really dismayed by the amount of division across politics, economics, socially, and so forth. And so my natural reaction is, well, what will bind us again? And I finally figured it out this year, what the new human universal law that is actually the oldest law should be. But the idea is foundationally abundance and more. The idea is that you should be able to create more than you have taken in this life. And when we are able to create more than we've taken or destroyed, the pie of economics, of who we know, of what we believe can grow. So,
yeah, and bringing it back to your childhood experiences, when you were younger, like for your parents and grandparents really building that American dream and achieving success, how did that give you perspective on work and success?
I was spoiled by 2 parents who were very successful and present, who were at once tiger parents, but very Socratic and did not require anything. So I think I just really lucked out in the parental lottery of 2 people who are great examples, gave us good resources, never spoiled us with anything but love. Like I didn't get a fancy car when I turned 15, 16, all that. Yeah. But showed me that like anything was possible if I really worked my ass off on it. I think the second thing that they taught me is I remember when I was really young, my mother would ask me, who do you want to be when you grow up? And like every kid, you name certain idols. And she would really viscerally like lambaste me for doing so. She would be like, her response is like, why would you ever want to be anyone but yourself? Your job is to be you. And your reward in life is not to have a title like CEO of blank. It's actually just to have your name. And if you think about the sort of like most unforgettable and industry-defining iconic people, Madonna, Oprah, Jesus, they're all just their names, And so there's a wisdom in the ultimate title and achievement is for you to become you, And so I think that's the other lesson that I really, really, really appreciate from them. I never had the whole doctor, lawyer, failure talk. That was not in our household. Even like piano. Like I played piano because I liked it. My parents put me through Suzuki method because that's what you start out with. I hated it. What 5-year-old likes classical music? And maybe there's some, but not most I know. And I certainly wasn't one of them. And so they let me pivot into whatever I want. And that's how I discovered all of Disney's music and then eventually jazz. And so, I feel very, very, very lucky on that. And it's for sure, like, I think how all parent one day too.
Yeah. And was there like a moment in your childhood that kind of shaped your ambitions or kind of wants for the future, like future career options? Or did you kind of figure that on a little bit later in life?
I've only ever wanted to be really one or two things. So when I was really, really young, like 3 years old, I told my parents I wanted to be president because I wanted just to help other people. And when you're young at that age, you perceive the president to be the person who is able to help the most people. I remember apparently when I was in third grade, I read like every third grade level biography, partly because there was like a pizza party contest and I'm super competitive and I wanted my class to win, and we did, partly because of me, partly another kid. And I remember just learning that all the best presidents get assassinated or were handicapped. And I remember as a 10-year-old being really depressed about that.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I don't want to be president anymore. That sounds shitty.
Yeah.
So not to be pejorative to either experience, but it's just like, being assassinated does not sound fun.
Yeah.
And so that's when I pivoted to wanting to be Walt Disney. And it has remained unchanged since. When I think about who has been able to reshape dreams at a global level, the Walt Disney Company has been the most successful by far, next to the institution that is illustratively the church.
Yeah, and where did the joy and passion for Walt Disney and that whole like thing come from for you?
I think everything comes from many places. I think just like as a human being inductively, I just love Disney. I love the idea of world building. Like my favorite toy still is like Power Ranger Megazords. I just love how things can like come together and create like an ecosystem. And there's no reason. I just think it's so interesting. I think world building is awesome. At a deductive level, nurture trumps nature. So we know that if we can build better worlds, that we can improve outcomes, right? We know no one's born racist, as it were. We know this is taught, right?
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one. When I also think about like change over time, I do think that there's a combination of stories and systems that enable positive behaviors that are necessary. And I would argue that the Walt Disney Company, even though it's like 4 to 6 divisions depending on how you slice it, it's ultimately bifurcated between the stories that we put out and the systems, products, and so forth that help us believe. So there's a theory there. Also, if you think about like number of followers and revenue and so forth, if you were to pick the greatest president in history of the United States, I would argue it's FDR. But there's no question that Walt Disney, I think, has changed more lives over the last century than FDR has.
Yeah.
And so at least the way I calibrate life changing. And so, that's in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, and as we move on to the second part of the podcast, kind of talking about your education in earlier parts of your career, like what was your undergrad experience like, and did you always have in mind that you wanted to create this Walt Disney thing, like right out of undergrad, and how did you want to kind of do that, I guess, in college?
I definitely did. The problem is, as with all things in life, like there's a duality of Disney where you're half creative and half tech. And so I had thought, because my heart is 51% probably in creative, that I should start out as a writer, producer, director, all that, and like go work my way up in the mailroom, which is why I got very lucky to intern at Disney twice while I was at Penn. Forever changed my life, gave me a deep appreciation for the true rigorous creative process. There's a reason Disney IP is unlike any others. There are real reasons why, structural reasons why. And so that was that. But I graduated in the height of the economic recession, the largest in history of this country, and there was an impracticality of going just to the creative side immediately. There was also a want for the other side always, because the grass is greener. And so when I was 21, I pontificated as much as I could of like, if I didn't just do creative, what is the other side that's necessary? And the answer was systems. And at the time, as like a consumer, YouTube seemed to be the platform and the space where we could democratize not just the distribution of content, which is something the world now takes for granted. This was not obvious back then. This is nearly 15 years ago. But I was more intrigued by the democratization of creation, the idea that anyone could be God. Like anyone could turn water into wine, or in our case, anyone could make anyone a superstar, or anyone could make anyone into a multimedia company that's worth, in some cases, billions and billions. And so, I applied on a whim to Google. I was planning otherwise to go be a starving whatever in LA. I didn't get an interview because my major was creative writing, and who would look at a creative writing major? And I ended up being a backup to a backup on the day of interviews on campus, because Penn has the most robust on-campus recruiting program. It's very stressful, but it's incredible. It's for sure leading across all the Ivies, so very grateful for it. And ended up being the only person at Penn to get an offer and accept into its executive management program in higher profession as a creative writing major. And that completely changed my life. Yeah.
Yeah, and then how did, like, was that the interview to be like the Google product marketing manager, or like how did that transition, or like that was just the interview for that?
Yeah, correct. Exactly. The program was called the Rotational Associate Management Program. So Marissa Meyer, who's the first engineer hired at Google back in the day, she created this program for both business folks and then product engineering folks to, quote, identify the next future leaders of industry. So our alums include Kevin Systrom, who founded Instagram, one of my buddies, Grant, who founded Whatnot, et cetera. So this is an amazing group of people who are like really missionary, love to build and all that.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally lucked out. It was the most incredible experience by far, for sure.
Yeah, and like what was some of the things that you learned at this role that like set this like foundation and I guess ultimately led to some really amazing people after this program?
Oh my God, it's like everything, man. Like
Just a couple.
we just got so much responsibility that no 22-year-old deserves. And I mean, the best experience was for sure what I was able to do at YouTube. There's so many people who try to take credit for it these days, but like I feel very privileged to have been one of the primary epicenters of the entire creator economy, partly because no one cared about it. The YouTube wanted to be a traditional media company at that point, basically. And there were like some incredible leaders, though, who had just this other vision. So my boss, Chris Hamilton, who's one of the greatest human beings alive. Shanaz Zach, who really is the pioneering product manager for the partner program and creators. Marcus Healy, who ran all like the top creators. There's like a Devin Storbeck who handled support at the time, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of great people. Yeah, I think what I was able to be taught was even if you have very few resources financially, team-wise, I had no direct reports, of course. I was 22, and you have no belief in company priority because everyone wants to just go license a bunch of traditional content. You can change the world, as it were, by building a multi-billion-dollar industry through other means. And we did it because we understood, we had a belief and thesis. We worked our asses off, and we were able to like align with other people's priorities because we are more similar than we are different, even if they weren't willing to give us their direct resources. So I think that is probably how do you build a scaled system that is collaborative and lean is probably the best thing I learned from Google. And then the other one would be like ethics. Like I definitely know who my enemies are, and 100% of them that I'm at least aware of are either uninformed or they do not pass my ethics bar. And I think what Google taught me was to be brave enough to be uncompromising on ethics and excellence at once. And I've held that to be true.
Yeah. And like for that transition onto like YouTube, like for the people listening, can you maybe like explain like what the global creator economy was in that development stage of you growing it, like in very like simple terms?
Yeah, super easy. So when I first got there was like this walled application. So if you wanted to like monetize on YouTube or like get certain custom things, you applied to this black box application. It was literally human reviewed, and there were like 30,000 people in it. We were like, there's got to be a way that we can create more resources for more people if you want to be your own Disney, and for this to be faster. So the punchline is there's a trinity of things among the 6 that creators most care about. They are fame, fortune, and creativity. So we had a litany of efforts, and we launched a litany of efforts in all 3 of those within the first 2 years, which is really in hindsight wild to think. It was an insane amount of work for a very lean team. So on the fame side, this means how do you build a large and engaged audience, but also become qualitatively famous? And so this is where I led the globalization of the partner program, where we just provided a lot of these services to more people. There were also programs like Devin Storbeck ran something called On the Rise, where we would identify certain channels and put them on the homepage for a certain period of time. And then all the way to the Gold Play button, which I co-created. So the idea was like no one knew what success was on the YouTube platform. And so the problem is like if you don't know where you're going, you have no idea whether you're doing well now, and you might leave the platform, and that's a bad business imperative. So we created this like insane segmentation to understand how many people were performing at what level. We then identified what was the metric of excellence publicly and privately. This was a whole debate because they were discordant. We ended up choosing subscribers. And like all good artists, I stole from the music industry with our interns, Brian Blake, and then Grant and Gavin ended up producing the physical play button. But we said like there's a gold record in music. We should just make the same thing.
So you were like one of the main people to like make the gold play button.
Oh yeah, that's one of my children for sure. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
It's 24 karat gold plated. By the way, it's no longer. It used to cost us $3,000 a pop. It was
Really?
crazy. 35 pounds. Yeah, that was the original. And then leadership at some point in the 5th year was like, something's not right here. This is too expensive.
Do you have any of your like own? Did you like keep one when you left YouTube?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I did not, and I really should have. I actually just bought like an Etsy replica that is oddly almost identical. It's actually, you can't see it, but it's back there. It's oddly almost identical to the original one that we made. But yeah, so that's an example, all the way to co-producing and really rejuvenating VidCon, which is now the biggest online video convention in the world. Yeah. VidCon was going to die in its 2nd year, and I had to like fight my leadership and convince them that this was going to be a thing. Yeah. And then we basically like financed 70% of it, and the rest is history. So anyway, those are a couple of the things on the fame side, and then the marketing team did a bunch of other incredible work to make sure that the creators were seen as like new age celebrities. On the monetization side, this is like my like biggest business contribution. Yeah. I led the globalization of the monetization part of the global partner program. It was the most complicated thing I've ever done because every country has a policy, every data center is different, every load is different, every program is different. But that thing, by the time I left, grew from 200 million to 1.5 billion.
Wow.
I'm really, really, really proud. And so that is the foundation of the creator economy. Yeah. And then finally on the creative side, myself, my friend Austin Lau, Heather Moon, a bunch of others, we created a lot of the talent incubation programs, including the accelerator that is now the longest standing accelerator and still exists to this day. It's called Next Up. All the way to youtube.com/creators. I created youtube.com/creators because there was no resource, like basic stuff like that. Wow. All the way to standardizing the term creators. So when I had gotten in, everyone called them video bloggers and partners, which I always took issue with because it just felt really old and myopic. Yeah. And a bunch of people, I remember specifically Hank Green, who's one of like the original great creators, and Shay Carl. I had a call with them, and they kept calling themselves creators. And I was really moved by this because there's this cool thesis that like these people are not just creative people. They are like the CEOs, CMOs, CFOs, CEOs of their empires. They're like truly creators, right? And so I literally fought leadership for 6 months trying to standardize this. And I recently called him out in a puckish way. There's one particular executive who said, "No, Bing, you can't do this because the Christians will get mad." And really? I told him, I was like, the Christians don't own creators. Like Christianity is only so old. Like, I'm pretty sure like we have a version of this in Chinese, which is millennial. Anyway, all to say, so I started standardizing the term creator and stated that. Wow. And then the term creator economy came because in 2011, our PR lead, Annie Baxter, said that people internally and externally still weren't taking us seriously. And so she said, we need a business like imperative to this. So we should call it the creator economy. And I was like, okay, whatever, like call it the creator economy. Yeah. and that's when creator economy was born.
Wow. So you were really like the foundation and like for the creator economy, even like coining the term basically.
One of them. Yeah. I will take credit for standardizing the term creator at YouTube corporate, which then meant the entire industry. I would for sure take credit for that.
That's incredible.
But Annie gets credit. I don't know if it was Annie or Annie's like collaborators in PR, but I always say Annie because she is the first time any of us had heard that term. Yeah. And then it was published and all that. There are all these annoying venture capitalists who take credit for saying it. They're all full of shit, by the way. They did not. It was definitely Annie and the PR team at YouTube. So
yeah. And like, what was like? It sounds like YouTube was like such a great time for you. Like you learned so much, did so many different things. Like if you had to say like one thing was your favorite or like your favorite project, like what would it be?
Ooh, it would be either the globalization of the partner program or launching Watch Time, the guiding algorithm of the platform, the marketing PR side. They were the most painful projects by far.
Wait, what do you mean by Watch Time exactly?
So the guiding algorithm that controls like what videos you get seen and all that is called Watch Time. It's calibrated by sending you basically videos that optimize for the longest and most engaged viewing experience on the platform. Yeah. And so it was on the product side led by Trevor O'Brien, Shashir Mehrotra, and they literally, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but they basically told my bosses one Thursday, they're like, hey, we're going to launch this thing. It was either like tomorrow, Friday, or Monday, and like we think it's important. And my boss sent it to me, and because part of my job was just like to put out fires because I really loved working cross functionally, and like I'm just a problem solver, and I just like conflict. Yeah. And my buddy on the strategy and ops side, Chris Knapp, and I ran the numbers, and basically like the top 20 channels were gonna bleed, and so we went back and we were like, hey man, this launch is like really significant and going to be a huge problem for a lot of people who make us a lot of money.
Yeah.
Also, the list includes the Walt Disney Company. Like these are like really important people.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we did this like insane 5-day war room basically, and we got them to delay the launch. And like, yes, it was painful, but in the same way that the partner program was so convoluted and had so many egos and so many personalities and all these fights, I'm just like really grateful because like both of these have truly changed the world at the billions. And like, there's just something like, I don't bemoan people unless like you're inept and unethical. Like everyone was great in trying to do good work. And there's just something awesome about working at that level with that level of person.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was just awesome, man. It was like, it's such a privilege. And like being that young, like I was the youngest, dumbest person by far in those rooms. And being able to like co-lead those things is just like, just a miracle.
Yeah. And like, then if YouTube was so great, like what was part of that like transition or opportunity to go to AU Holdings, and like, why did you ultimately like make that jump from YouTube?
Yeah, easy. So my dream always is to be the new existential Walt Disney, and I was really clear about that when I got into YouTube too. Like I'm the type of person who overshares all the time. So like what you see is what you get. 'Cause I just don't think secrets are like meaningful. It wastes so much time, and so or ulterior motives waste time and all that. And so I was really clear that like I'm here at YouTube very gratefully, but I'm here to learn, and I'm going to go build my own Walt Disney company at some point. Everyone knew this, right?
Wow.
So when I was 27, I had globalized the partner program was $1.5 billion. I just got on the Forbes 30 under 30 list the same year that Ryan Coogler, Lena Dunham got on the same category, one of the two most competitive categories in Hollywood.
Congrats.
Thank you. Most decorated person at YouTube worldwide. I got every single award, including the peer awards. I had the highest. And so I was in like a staff room, and I had realized like I'd done everything I could. And if I stayed for another decade, I would just have a lot more money and a higher title, but I'd be doing the same work. Yeah. And that was not acceptable to me. Like I need to have catalytic growth always. I constantly want to be the dumbest and most inept person in the room. Yeah. It's how I stretch. And so that was the first thing. It's like I had a vision and I felt like I had maxed out. And then the third consideration was the worst case scenario would be that I would just come back open arms to the top company in the world. Yeah. And I think there's a glamorization of entrepreneurship that like you have to suffer and stay on someone's couch and all this. And by the numbers, the reality is most successful entrepreneurs are at least middle class, unfortunately. They're of means, and they all have backup plans. Yeah. And so that is just the reality. So that's why I left. And I basically, like, all on me, like, overcorrected. I had been so deep in tech, I completely neglected my creative side, which killed me. Yeah. And so I actually, like, just started investing, advising, board directing through All Holdings just to make money. But the real thing that I did for 2 years was to write my novel and set the foundation of this new creative franchise that will finally go out 10 years later next year. It's taken so long. It has taken way longer than I thought, and it's the best thing I've ever done.
Wow. Yeah. So you were basically like investing in different things while like writing this book.
Correct.
Yeah. So like what were you looking for to like investing in? Like it says that you invest in like multicultural creators, companies, and like communities. So like what does this like entail basically?
Yeah, so initially I advised a ton of companies on their creative strategies. So the biggest one is there's a company called ByteDance that acquired a company called Musical.ly. When they acquired that, I helped advise them on integration as well as a lot of their scale creative strategy for the platform that became TikTok. I did the same for Pinterest, same thing for Snap, same thing for Spotify. So there's just like a lot of that like bread and butter.
Every big brand basically.
Yeah, I mean, like when you build the biggest creator economy, everyone just wants to copy it, right? So like it's all good. It's all good for me. Like, you know. So that would be one. The second are just like things that I was interested in the broader creator community economy, meaning like what are the ecosystems that enable people to make cool stuff and live longer. So my like probably biggest pride and joy is or one of my 3 winners, is a company called Aura.
So the Aura ring.
Yeah, so it's worth $11 billion now. We were like active in the A, helped the CEO basically like blossom it into a mainstream brand.
Wow.
We basically got it. The punchline is like we got it to a bunch of doctors because we didn't want to sell it to or get like celebrity sponsors and try to overpay. So we sent it to a bunch of celebrity doctors, and we knew at some point one of them was going to take off. And one of them did. It ended up being Meghan Markle's, and she gave her husband right after their wedding another ring, and the tabloids picked it up. And so anyway, long story short is like he called me, he's like, oh my god, it's begun. And Aura was not a thing back then, by the way. And so I was like, okay, well what we need to do now is we need to go to a high-end because this needs to be a luxury product
Yeah.
outlet, and then also a mass end one, and we need to sequence the publication of it. So we went to Vanity Fair and all that, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's one. And then another's Muesli that, full circle, Goldhouse is actually an investor of now. Muesli is the fastest growing e-dermatology business in the country. They're killing it.
Yeah.
And they're specifically focused on just like better skin, better lives, particularly for people over the age of 40. And so I was very lucky to be able to advise their creator and content strategy in their last iteration with the incredible CEO, Jack. And we've been lucky enough to have Goldhouse invest, and I now sit on the board. So this is a smattering of examples.
Yeah, and like now we're gonna move on to kind of like your current career and like what you're doing now as the CEO and co-founder of Goldhouse. So for the first question, for just the people listening, could you give like a brief and like simple explanation of what Goldhouse is and what it does?
There's a difference between what Goldhouse is and does now and where we're going. So I'll like give you a preview of the latter, but I'll tell you the former. Goldhouse exists to reshape mainstream culture, specifically from Asian Pacific culture. So when you think about like broader societal outcomes, all of it is actually foundationally cultural. So your social network, which is the single greatest determinant of whether you thrive in life, is based on the churches you go to, the public plazas that are government sanctioned, and so forth. That's culture. Economically, the single greatest determinant of whether you skip economic classes is who you marry. The second highest is your extracurricular activities in elementary school, soccer practice, music lessons. All of this is culture. Political division that we all know about everywhere, right? The right and the left hate each other, and most of us are in the middle, right?
Yeah.
The majority of information we consume is from platforms. That is culture. Technology is culture. And so most of culture to date, in all forms, has been dictated by Western Europe and the United States, when the majority of the world is actually in Asia, 5 to 8 billion. And so our job is, how do we foundationally just reshape mass culture in all these different sectors, in business and entertainment, et cetera, from consulting to investing to marketing, so that we can all sort of win over time. So that's the mission. And then I can regale you with the tactical strategies if you want.
Yeah, so like we can get into that later, but like what was like the specific moment, or maybe if there was like an incident where you realized Goldhouse needed to exist and kind of like lit the spark for actually creating Goldhouse?
It was two things. So one is a bunch of our elders were getting hit in the face, and a bunch of us were like, well, that's not right. This feels wrong.
Yeah.
But what we realized is if you wait till someone gets hit in the face and then try to create like a civil rights org to punish those who hit those in the face, one, our diaspora is evenly split down the middle on almost every political issue. So some people would agree with those behaviors, some would not.
Yeah.
And the second issue is if you wait till someone gets hit in the face, you've waited too late. It's actually not hitting the foundational issue for why this happened in the first place. The second input, though, is we can't just operate from a place of punishment or pain. We also think that we are very powerful. So a bunch of us, it was Director John and Chu, Kevin Lin, the founder of Twitch, Janet Yang, the recent president of the Academy. We were all in a room, and we looked around, and we were like, why isn't there an Asian mafia? In the same way that there is a Jewish and a black mafia. We are 5 to 8 billion people in the world. We're the fastest growing domestic population. We have created most of the most successful creative franchises, the most lucrative in Pokemon, the most decorated in Everything Everywhere All at Once, the most decorated single director of a season, Chloe Zhao, the most watched film of all time on Netflix, K-pop Demon Hunters, now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like go on and on and on. We invented paper, by the way, et cetera, right? We invent most of the hottest companies, right? Why isn't there a group or an entity, a platform, a fund, a studio that is harnessing this power from us in a productive way that doesn't just help us collaborate, but really helps us collaborate to share with everyone else? And that was like the thrust for a lot of us, because like I had never done anything Asian before because it just wasn't a thing to me. John hadn't either. Kevin hadn't either. Janet had to an extent with the U.S.-China film market, but most of us were like born again Asians. And I think that perspective is important, because our lens at Goldhouse has never been like, let's just build a world for by Asians, improve representation, all that. It's specifically how do we hone our resources to benefit everybody, because we know our intrinsic power and gifts. And by the way, we are here to help and collaborate with everyone else too. And so we basically literally went on a 9-month roadshow and asked 500 people, like, if we were to build this mafia, what would it be? And then we ran a study with Bain in parallel, and everyone said the exact same 3 things in the exact same descending order. They said the number one people to shit talk other Asians are fellow Asians. So we need a mutually supportive network that looks like us, like that is young, that is 50% women, that is 20% South Asian, 30% Southeast Asian, etc. Second is we hate how we're represented in media. our women are fetishized, our men are emasculated, and also we know how creative we are. We created an anime, we created K-pop. Like, we have a lot of great wins that show how creative we can be. Third is none of us can get into C-suite or boards. We are good employees. We know we're great leaders, but for some reason corporations do not recognize that.
Yeah, like the bamboo ceiling.
Correct. And so then we were like, okay, well, let's just execute one by one. So we started by calling a bunch of our friends who are at the apex of the cultural industries, because you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And we wanted to reshape mainstream culture. So these are all CEOs, A-list celebrities, Olympic gold medalists. And we started getting together through these private secret mafia dinners. And each of these dinners, we started with the first cause of creativity. We said, if you were to improve how we're perceived in mass media, what would you do? And everyone said, the market does not believe there's a viable opportunity for our stories. And so John, I'll fast forward through this, but like basically John had this gift called Crazy Rich Asians, which was a phenomenal film, luckily, but it was going to underperform. And we engineered a movement that became an agency, that became a company that changed the world for that film that is now lit up over 100 times since then, has helped people win Oscars. And then there's a whole strategy beyond that, but I'll pause on that first.
Yeah, well, that's like incredible. So you guys are basically the Asian mafia, if that's what Goldhouse is.
Benevolent Asian mafia.
Yeah. And how has Goldhouse's mission kind of evolved since its like founding? You kind of mentioned this at like the start when you first started talking about it.
Yeah, so that's everything we've done today. We've been really proud and are going to continue and are actually doubling down on all the existing work. So continuing to have the largest network of the most pioneering Asia-Pacific leaders worldwide, including Next Gen. On the media side, researching, consulting, investing in marketing, and publicizing the greatest stories and the greatest new IP that not only reshape minds and hearts about our diaspora, but equally important, are just amazing art. And then third is creating the next great new businesses that are on the front line of AI, creator economy, et cetera, that are also inclusively thinking about other populations and how we can help them. So that's what we've done today to help reshape mainstream culture. Where we are going is we are using our culture to better unite the world, to do more together, to get further. Again, I think if you ChatGPT actually right now, what are the 3 most salient issues plaguing humanity? They will tell you, number 1 is climate, how we have an expiration date on Earth, of course. 2 is AI workplace enablement and displacement. And then the third thing they will tell you is the loneliness epidemic. How people are not only lonelier, but because of that, they're having less sex, they're delaying getting married. If they get married at all, they're having fewer kids, etc. Further, they will tell you that men die 7 years now, shorter than women or faster than women. We commit most of the suicides, by the way, as well. And if you are a widow or widower, it can actually take off several years, if not decades of your life. And so this connective recession is the cause that we are going to focus on solving, because I do think culture is the foundation of solving it. You have to have food to have dinner with someone. You have to like love a DJ at a festival with someone, et cetera, et cetera. Like culture is always what convenes us. The trick is, and I also think we happen to have a very cool culture because we have the most people and we're one of the oldest, et cetera, et cetera. This year you saw it with Otani Yamamoto, K-pop Demon Hunters, Labubu. All these are our people.
Everything.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and it's about a continental identity. Sure, it's about heritage. Sure, it's about all that, but it's ultimately about how do these things just bring people together to do more. And so that's the punchline: is we are going to use a consistent set of cultural apparatuses, products, sites, etc., to bring everyone together, just so we can understand each other at a minimum and collaborate at a maximum. So that's what's evolving.
Yeah, so it's like using like that collective good and like supporting everyone through culture.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and like what does like your day-to-day look like as the CEO of Goldhouse? I know it's like a huge organization, but like probably doing 100 different things because you guys have so many like subsections, but maybe if you could like on like a week to week or like what are you like generally doing as the CEO?
There is no consistency, unfortunately, and that's the way I like it. I've always, even at YouTube, I basically had 3 jobs. Like I ran a bunch of the programs that I created. I put out fires, and then I ran the global creative strategy. So it's always been this way. I'm better when I can do many things at once. And I should also mention we are able to execute at this level because we have the most phenomenal lieutenants who are all empowered in their own right. So it's because we have great. I shouldn't even call them lieutenants because we have great GMs. But on any given day, I mean, I can tell you what happened today. I had to go to the gym really early because we don't miss gym, and body's terrible. I then had a call with the former CEO of one of the biggest music labels in the world, who is working on his new music label, and all that was about how do we think about the new next great music export, and what are the new formats in a world where like sometimes it's hard to break out. We then talked about Diwali as well as part of our South Asian strategy. I then spoke with a convener, an investor and philanthropist about how we're thinking about West Asian stories and investments, both inside of West Asia or the Middle East, and then also how those can propagate everywhere else, particularly given the conflict in Gaza right now and how a lot of people in certain industries are quite binary on that situation. Then I talked with this longevity investor who's a billionaire because one of the next parts of where we're going is how do you live the longest life possible with Eastern medicine. So we thought about what are the sectors that are really interesting, what is actually practical and legal to provide in the States, et cetera, et cetera. Then I talked to my trainer because I missed my protein goals. Then I had lunch with the former CMO of the NBA who just left. She's thinking about like what her next thing is. And then we spoke with Google TV. The GM leadership there is in Goldhouse because we're really excited about a bunch of the stuff they're doing with Gemini. Then we talked to White & Kennedy Portland offices that makes all the Nike stuff because there's a whole creative thing. Then we talked about Gold Gala, which is like our big event next year. And then I talked to, I can't say which company yet, but it's this AI SaaS platform that we're assessing for our venture fund.
Nice.
And now I'm talking to you, and then I'm going to go take a half-hour nap, and then I'm going to the work supper, and then I'm going to go to a Fan of the Opera masquerade ball.
Wow, you're like, what time do you even like wake up? It seems like there's so many things that you're doing.
No, we just like, we keep it tight. 7 o'clock every day. But I get like 8 hours of sleep every night without fail. So.
Yeah, and like you mentioned Gold Gala, like how is that first like started and like the reasonings behind it, and how is it kind of evolved, and like why is it so important in your eyes?
So we studied what drives mainstream culture really academically. And one of the outputs of that was who are the cultural authorities or curative powers that decide what mainstream culture is and what excellence is. Another input is just pure eyeballs on the consumer side. So the two most watched events in this country are the Super Bowl and then secondly, the pre-show of the Met Gala, if you include all the socials and everything. Creating a new sports league is a lot of work. So we're not doing that right now. Though we are thinking about investing in one dance league, which I do think is actually probably the next great viable sports league. Highly democratic, doesn't require equipment, anyone can do it, all that. But the second is the Met Gala. And so we've just been really inspired by the incredible institution that is and its nexus of so many different industries. So Gold Gala is our Met Gala. Even Vogue calls it the Asian Met Gala. And so my goal is to have across North America and Asia in particular, the definitive annual convening that is aspirational and celebratory. And it's partly for our consumer awareness, but it's our consumer embrace. But on the like perceptual side, it's also our annual time to sort of like reset our calendar and to also educate the masses on like what excellence from our group even looks like. And excellence is not elitist, it's impact. It's who are the most impactful and effective people who are contributing to society. The other piece, and this is one of the reasons also we're called Gold, is one of the most prominent stereotypes against our diaspora is that we're cheap. And so one of the reasons Gold Gala is so vaulted and so elite is because we're trying to destigmatize and dismantle the misperception that we're all cheap. And so, but in our own way, in a way that doesn't have to be expensive, but it's deeply rich in heritage. That's why you see everything from like our chef. We don't serve bullshit filet mignon. We have a Michelin James Beard award-winning chef with $8 Alfonso mangoes that only cook 3 weeks out of the year from the highest rated restaurant in New York City called Sema, and its chef Vijay Kumar. Who is only one of 2 South Asians to win the best chef at the James Beard Award. It's like that is the level this is.
So you go to the extremes.
We have to, right? And that's not all we do, by the way. Like that's the one time of the year when like we do something like that, and we get one. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. But that's why that's important. And you'll see how it's going to continue to grow globally next year.
And so moving on to the fourth part of the podcast, talking about like challenges and overcoming obstacles as an Asian American. Like being an Asian American in leadership can come with its own set of challenges. Like if you have faced any, what were some of the obstacles you may have faced in your industry, particularly due to your background?
To be honest, I don't think I ever have. I know that's a popular opinion, maybe. I don't think I ever have because of my like race. And
then on the flip side, then like what role has like kind of like your cultural identity might have like played in like shaping your perspective and like style as a business leader And how have you have found ways to use it as like a strength in your career?
This I can answer. So I had the privilege of being a third culture kid. I saw most of the world far earlier than most people ever. I went to 60 countries by the time I was 14. And so I can usually cut through the forest to understand what someone's primal instinct and desire is, because I've been exposed to so many different ones and have realized they are very similar. I can get along with anyone because of that if I choose to. I'm now at the age where I refuse to get along with some people because too short, and I think many people are full of shit and or ineffective.
Yeah.
Not most, just many. But I would say that like being able to have wider eyes is a real gift to be able to cut through the noise, get things done faster, and so forth. I think the second piece is, this is more from being junior and less because of heritage, I'd say.
Yeah.
But when I was 22 at YouTube, like I had to learn how to influence everyone who didn't respond to me and didn't care about the work that we were doing in the creator economy and all that. And when that happens, you have to learn how to manage federatively, as I call it, which is indeed my management style now. So you have to learn like what are people most motivated by? How can you help serve and give to them? And then somehow convince them that whatever they're suddenly doing is also actually still theirs, but really also what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that mostly, again, was a function of just being really junior, but one could argue there's a great Eastern principle there too, of the notion of the collective and coming together and not making it about one individual person.
Yeah.
So I say that's important too. Yeah, I remember like Janet actually, when we were founding Goldhouse in the early days, she was like, she pulled me aside and she said, a lot of our messaging and our approach is very masculine. And so this is now genderizing things. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, look at the way that we talk about some of this language. Like, it's just really bombastic and bold. She's like, it's not about making it softer. It's about making it rounder and wider. And we immediately started tweaking a lot of how we talked about what we did, how we managed a lot of our family dinners. And we are forever changed because of it, you know? And so I look at that as not just the perspective of, in Janet's case, a woman, but I look at that also as very Eastern, very Asian. So maybe there's something there too.
Yeah. And for the final part of the podcast, talking about advice and inspiration, like what advice would you give to young Asian Americans who want to create impact at the intersection of culture, media, and like business?
Find out what you most care about and make sure that you are the only one or the best one who is equipped to do it. That would be the first. Never try to be someone else, all that. The second is learn AI and how you can optimize it. We all know that. And then third is just to do it. My only regret in undergrad is that I didn't build a company. It was the best time to do it. My only regret in high school is that I didn't build a company because I thought all these extracurriculars were so important. I don't know, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But I think creating a company or something with significant real societal value is just a fundamentally different level. And you just learn so much more. You theoretically, in a great case scenario, can contribute much more. But I wish I had done that.
Yeah, so you wish, like, do you wish you would have created something like Goldhouse when you were like in undergrad, or like something like different? Like, what were you thinking of? Like, oh, I wish I might have done this.
I should probably, in college, I definitely should have created a tech company of some sort. I think in high school, I wish I created a full piece of creative. Like a full novel, full play, like I don't know, full fashion line. I'm now doing all the above, but like, I wish I did it then. Yeah.
And like your days seem to be very like busy, like one day after another. But like, how do you find time to maybe like work on like your health and also like take time to also slow down a little bit, even though like you're doing so many things?
I block time. So I think of like my life as habits, not schedules. So the gym is actually a great example. I don't go to the gym at the same time every day because I can't, because just meetings pile up and all that. But I will go 5 days a week for sure. So I think that reframing and not trying to be too puritanical on when things happen has been really helpful to me. Two is I just have the most amazing trainer and the best diet, and I'm uncompromising on it. I in my like mid 30s have an 8-pack, and I never had even a 6-pack like in my life. And I live on planes. I'm like flying probably every 3 days or so. So it's really, really, really hard to maintain workouts and like diet regimen, et cetera. And yet I've done it. And so I owe it partly to him and his adaptability or adaptive tips. But I also think this is one of those things, like everything, that like if you really give a damn about it, you'll do it. Like I won't prophesize or legislate what other people, what position other people are or not in to do what they want.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, like, at face value, there's no reason I should have this body and this energy and this health. And I do, and it's because I commit to it.
Yeah.
So it's like anything else. You just got to do it.
Yeah. And like in your experience, like when meeting so many high, like achieving and very successful people, like what are some key traits or like habits that they have that you think like maybe got them there or that are necessary to be at the top?
It's so easy. The number one is persistence. It's not actually brilliance or talent or anything. It's just like who didn't stop, who really, really, really just committed and did it.
Yeah.
It sounds so obvious, but most companies fail. Yes, because of founder conflict. Yes, because they lose out of money. But like really because they just didn't want to do it anymore. If you want it, you'll do it.
Yeah. Like if you want it bad enough, like you'll make it happen.
Correct. And like one day I will share the hell that my life has been. And like, let's say no longer, luckily, but like a decade ago, like I know from the outside I look like, I don't know, so like the child of these like very successful American dudes, all that. I've been through life and death level hell.
Yeah.
And so like I should be living proof that if you want it bad enough, you will have it. So that's number one. Honestly, that's it. I mean, all the others are just like the canonical like product market fit, like test quickly, like make sure that you're like, you're well resourced and starving, like all that stuff's obvious. You can read it anywhere. But the number one quality, I've got like almost 40 billionaire friends now, self-made, is persistence. There's no question.
Yeah. And how do you define success now, and how has that definition kind of changed over time?
How much you have improved, it's never changed. Success is how much you have given to the world and how much of the world you have enhanced. So another way, like how much better are the lives around you because of you? That is success.
And it's like kind of connecting to that like beginning point of like giving and like adding something like into the world, basically.
Correct. I am like deeply, and I say this as someone who did very well financially at a very young age, like I am so unimpressed by individual wealth. I think it is so boring and selfish and easy. It is much harder to grow and raise an ocean around you. Yeah. And that is success.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed talking to you about Goldhouse and especially the pieces of advice at the end about like persistence. So thank you so much.
No, privileged to be here.